I thought my marriage was built on trust, but one night I woke up thirsty and discovered the fridge padlocked shut. My husband claimed it was for my own good, insisting I was overeating at night. I laughed it off at first, thinking it was one of his bizarre jokes, but soon I began to notice his strange late-night behavior, the secretive phone calls, and the way he watched me during dinner. My body started changing in ways I couldn't explain: constant fatigue, sudden weight loss, dizzy spells. When I finally went to the doctor, the results shattered everything I thought I knew about my life, my health, and my husband's intentions. It was 2:14 a.m. when I padded barefoot into the kitchen, still half asleep, craving nothing more than a cold glass of water. The moonlight spilled through the window, painting silver streaks across the tiled floor. I opened the fridge door, except I couldn't. There was a thick, ugly padlock clamped around the handles. A metal chain wound tight like a snake stood there for a moment, blinking, trying to make sense of it. My husband, Daniel, stepped into the doorway, his hair messy from sleep, but his eyes, those were wide awake. "Go back to bed, Rachel," he said quietly. "What is this?" I pointed to the fridge. "It's for your own good," he replied, his voice flat. "You've been eating at night. A lot. You just don't remember it." I laughed, because what else could I do? "You locked our fridge?" His jaw tightened. "You've gained weight. You've been tired all the time. I'm helping you." I felt a rush of embarrassment, anger, and disbelief all tangled together. "Helping me? By treating me like a child?" "By protecting you," he said, then turned and walked away. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the cold metal glinting in the dark. The next day, I tried to brush it off. Maybe he was just being overprotective. Maybe he read some ridiculous health article online. But as the week went on, I began to notice other things. Daniel started preparing my meals himself. He hovered while I ate, making small comments about my portion sizes. And then there were the whispers, phone calls he took late at night, stepping into the garage and closing the door behind him. My body didn't feel like my own anymore. My jeans hung looser on my hips, yet I was eating less than ever. My hands sometimes trembled for no reason. I thought maybe it was stress, but deep down, something didn't add up. One night, unable to bear the hunger, I crept into the kitchen and found Daniel asleep on the couch, the padlock key resting in his open palm. My heart hammered as I took it and unlocked the fridge. Inside, something smelled off. The milk had a faint, bitter scent. My leftover soup looked a shade darker than when I'd made it. I dipped a spoon in and tasted just enough to feel the wrongness. Metallic. I dropped the spoon, my hand shaking, and that's when I realized this wasn't about overeating at all. I didn't tell Daniel that I'd unlocked the fridge. I didn't tell him about the spoon, or the metallic film it left on my tongue, or the way my stomach clenched as if it recognized an intruder. I told him I wasn't hungry. He smiled like a supervisor signing off a checklist. At work the next day, my hands wouldn't stop trembling. I spilled coffee on a stack of invoices and laughed too loudly, then needed to sit down because the room tilted. My boss asked if I'd eaten breakfast. I lied and said yes. I kept thinking about the chain around our groceries. Who padlocks a marriage? That evening, Daniel plated my dinner with the care of a museum curator. He set down a glass of water. I watched the surface, hunting for a shimmer. He hovered, chin in hand, like he was studying me for a test I didn't know I'd taken. When he went to answer a work call, I took the plate to the sink and scraped half into a container I'd labeled with the date. I hid it behind the flour. I wrapped my glass with plastic wrap and slid it into the back of the fridge. I knew it sounded paranoid. I also knew I'd started to be afraid of my own kitchen. By midnight, my heart was pounding like it wanted out. I booked the first available appointment with my doctor and begged the receptionist to squeeze me in. The next morning, I sat on the crinkly white paper while Dr. Shaw listened to my chest and frowned at my pupils. I told him about the fatigue, the weight loss, the tremors. I told him I'd been dieting, because I couldn't yet say the word husband and suspicious in the same breath without choking on it. He ordered blood, urine, and ECG, and, after I mentioned the metallic taste, some tox screens just to be thorough. He told me to hydrate and rest. He didn't tell me not to be afraid, which made the fear feel justified. On my way home, I bought a small lockbox and slid it under the passenger seat. I'd store the food samples there, dated, sealed. It felt crazy and also like the first sane thing I'd done in weeks. Daniel was in the garage when I got back, an old habit when he wanted privacy. I listened through the laundry room door. A low murmur, then a pause, then, no, it has to be unflavored. My scalp prickled. At dinner, he asked how the appointment went. I told him they were running tests. He nodded and told me he'd be in charge of the grocery list for a while, until we get your cravings under control. When I reached for the salt, he slid it away with a soft smile. You'll thank me later. I woke up at 3 a.m. to the sound of the chain brushing steel. I crept down the hall. Daniel's back was to me, his body a dark outline haloed by the fridge light, the padlock open, a small dropper bottle in his hand. He tilted it over a pitcher of water. 1, 2, 3 drops. My throat closed on a sound that could have been a gasp or a sob. I stepped on the one squeaky board in the hallway. He turned. The bottle vanished into his palm. Couldn't sleep? He asked, voice velvety, thirsty. I managed. He poured me water. I stared at the glass, at him, at my own reflection in the surface. I didn't lift it. He waited. I carried it to the sink, turned on the tap, and let it run as if I were adding more. When I turned back, he was smiling at me like a teacher who's pleased you've learned a lesson. At 8:22 the next morning, my phone lit up with the clinic's number. I answered with hands already cold. Rachel, Dr. Shaw said, voice clipped, careful. Are you alone? Yes. I have preliminary results. I need you to listen very carefully. Do not consume anything prepared in your home until we talk in person. The words didn't just ring in my ears, they retuned the entire house. The counters, the cutting boards, the spice rack, suddenly every surface felt like a crime scene I was walking through without gloves. I told Daniel the doctor thought I might have a virus and recommended bland food from a specific list. He frowned, then offered to help with the list. I said the clinic would deliver prepared meals for a week to control variables. He didn't like that. He smiled anyway. I texted my friend Mia, can I crash with you tonight? Emergency. She answered, obviously. Bring toothbrush. And mace. I didn't leave. Not yet. If I bolted, he'd clean. He'd sanitize, throw out, replace, deny. I needed something that wouldn't wash away. I set my phone on the kitchen shelf and pretended to scroll recipes. I switched the camera to video. When Daniel went to the garage for a call, I opened the fridge. The pitcher was on the top shelf. I poured a little into a sterile sample tube from the lockbox. I labeled it with shaking hands. I added a bit of the soup, the milk, the glass from last night. I tucked everything away and shut the door just as he came back in. He set 2 mugs on the counter. Tea? He asked, what kind? Herbal. Helps with appetite control. I watched steam curl up like a question mark. I'll pass. He sipped his own, eyes on me over the rim. When he left the mug to answer his phone, I sniffed it and caught a faint chemical tang beneath the chamomile. Not taste, smell. Memory flickered, his new vitamin kit in the bathroom, the unlabeled amber vials, the way he'd started saying words like cleanse and reset like they were prayers, that afternoon. I took the samples to the clinic. Dr. Shaw's nurse took them with both hands. No eye rolls, no suggestion I was overreacting. Just a grave nod. Dr. Shaw met me in his office. He closed the door. Your labs show a metabolic acidosis, he said. Your bicarb is low. You've got a pattern we see with certain anti-epileptics and weight loss drugs. There's also something else, a drug screen flagged topiramate at a level that doesn't fit a casual exposure. Are you taking it? No, the word broke out of me. But my husband, he said I was overeating at night. He locked the fridge. Dr. Shah's jaw worked. I'm obligated to report suspected poisoning. I want you to think of this as chemical coercion. It's a form of domestic abuse. The floor seemed to tilt again. I gripped the edge of the chair. What do I do? Eat only sealed, pre-packaged food you open yourself. Avoid anything from your home until we have more. And, Rachel, do not confront him alone. I nodded. Then I went home and did exactly what he told me not to do. I needed to know why. That word buzzed like a mosquito in my skull, maddening and small. If I knew the motive, I could make sense of the story, turn it from nightmare to narrative. I told Daniel I'd work late. Instead, I sat in my car around the corner until the porch light went out. I slipped inside and headed for the bathroom. The vitamin kit was in the cabinet, droppers, a pill crusher, gauge-marked syringes without needles, and an amber bottle with a torn label, the only legible word, Topper. My mouth went dry. I lifted the bottle, and a folded receipt slid out from the box beneath it. A compounding pharmacy. Cash purchase. No name. Date stamped a month ago. I photographed everything, hands colder than the tile, down the hall, a floorboard. Groaned. I froze. Daniel stood in the doorway, his silhouette taller than I remembered, or maybe my fear made him grow. What are you doing? He asked. I looked at the bottle in my hand. I looked at my husband. Counting vitamins, I said. He stepped closer, slow. You shouldn't snoop, Rachel. It makes you see things that aren't there. Like a padlock? I asked. Like a chain? His smile didn't reach his eyes. Like a problem that I'm solving for you. My phone buzzed in my back pocket. I flinched. He tilted his head. Who is that? He asked. I pulled the phone out, expecting Mia, a lifeline. It wasn't. It was my insurance app, a new alert for a policy change I didn't request. Beneficiary updated. Coverage increased. Effective immediately. I didn't sleep at Mia's. I lay awake and counted the seconds between the creaks of her radiator. When the sun bleached the edges of the curtains, the world didn't feel safer, it just felt better lit. Dr. Shah called at 9:03 a.m. with the confirmatory test. It's topiramate, he said plainly. And something else, semaglutide markers. In your system. Both can suppress appetite, cause weight loss, cognitive changes. Both require access. Rachel, I'm reporting this now. The word access snapped into place like a puzzle piece I'd been pretending didn't fit. Access to my food, my water, my body. Daniel's concern was a lock disguised as care. I told Mia everything. She stopped me halfway through and called her cousin, a detective. If I ever doubted my own perceptions, her quick, iron certainty welded them back together. He planned a trap that was more like a mirror. I would invite Daniel to talk. The detectives would wait nearby. I'd wear a thin wire, the kind that made me feel like my own voice was something to be collected as evidence. Mia practiced with me, coaching me to ask why in as many ways as I could. Don't accuse. Ask. Let him fill the silence. I nodded, heart stamping hope and fear on the same beat, asked Daniel to meet me at the house to fix this and talk like adults. He arrived with flowers and an expression so open I wanted to scratch at it. We sat at the kitchen table. Under the light I suddenly hated for how domestic it made everything look. I want to understand, I said. Why the lock? Why the vitamins? He folded his hands, thumb stroking thumb. You were spiraling. Eating at night. Moody. Unhappy. So you drugged me? I helped you, he said softly, as if we were in church. You needed it. You couldn't do it yourself. Couldn't do what? Control, he said. The word dropped like a rock in a still pond. I gave you back control. My stomach rolled. By taking it. He sighed, the put-upon sound of a man misunderstood by the woman he's saving. This marriage needed discipline. You needed to get healthy. Healthy or quiet? I asked. He didn't answer that. He reached into his pocket and placed a small bottle on the table, label crisp, legit this time, a compounded appetite suppressant. This is safer, he said. Approved. How many policies did you change? I asked, the question slashing out of me before I could pretend calm. His eyes flickered. That's not, how many? He paused, then smiled. A small, smug tilt. 2. I could feel my pulse in my gums. Why? Because, he said simply, I deserve to be taken care of for taking care of you. The kitchen seemed to narrow, the air thickening until I could taste it. I pushed the bottle back toward him. Say the words, I said, voice steadying. Say what you did. He looked at the counter, at the chain coiled like a dead snake beside the sink, at the pitcher. He touched the bottle with one finger, considering whether confession felt like victory. Men like Daniel write their own definitions and call it love. Finally, he said, almost tenderly, I made sure you ate less. I made sure you needed me. There was a knock at the door. His head jerked up. Before he could stand, 2 detectives stepped in with badges and calm, practiced voices. Daniel raised his hands and smiled as if this were a misunderstanding. He kept smiling right up until Detective Ward placed the dropper bottle in an evidence bag and read him his rights in a voice that didn't wobble. He turned to me as they cuffed him. You'll starve without me, he said, almost fond. You don't even know when you're hungry. I watched him go. For a second, the house was so quiet I could hear the clock in the hallway. Then my phone rang, Dr. Shaw again. Rachel, he said gently, we have one more result. I think it explains everything you've been feeling, even before this. You need to come in. Your thyroid levels are off the charts. I sat in Dr. Shaw's office while he turned his monitor so I could see the numbers. TSH bottomed out, T3 and T4 flashing high in the red. Hyperthyroid. He explained Graves' disease in simple not terrifying terms while my brain ran down all the months before the chain appeared, the night sweats, the tremors, the racing heart I'd blamed on stress. The way I'd lost weight even when I was too tired to eat. I had been sick and didn't know it. I had been made sicker by the man who vowed to keep me well. The medications in your system worsened the symptoms, Dr. Shaw said. They masked hunger cues, changed your taste. They weren't the cause, but they were a weapon. He paused. I'm sorry. I thought of Daniel's word, control, and how illnesses are their own kinds of locks. The difference is that a disease doesn't call it self-love while it tightens. A person does. I started treatment that day. I called Mia and told her I could finally name the thing that had been gnawing at me from both sides, Graves on the inside, Daniel on the outside. 2 invasions, one body, mine. The next weeks unfolded like a bruise fading, ugly at first. Then yellowing, then the skin learning how to look like itself again. I filed for a restraining order. The detective called to say the DA would pursue charges, felony poisoning, coercive control, insurance fraud. I recorded a statement, hands steady enough to keep my voice from shaking. When they asked me why I didn't leave sooner, I told them the truth. It's hard to flee a story you can't name. It's even harder when the villain brings you flowers. Daniel's lawyer called it a misguided wellness plan. Mine called it attempted murder. The judge called it what it was. Hearing the gavel made something inside me unclench. My appetite returned in strange, specific ways: a slice of toast with too much butter, a tomato so ripe it burst under my knife, a glass of water that tasted like nothing except water. Ordinary became a feast. I went back to the house one last time with Mia. We stood in the kitchen while the locksmith removed the chain. He handed it to me like a souvenir from a museum I never wanted to visit again. I dropped it in the trash. Then I opened the fridge and laughed, an actual, surprised laugh at the ridiculous abundance of it: condiments with labels, leftovers in clear containers, no secrets in bottles with torn names. That night, I filmed myself for the first time, a shaky little video I posted for the women who wake up thirsty and find padlocks. I told them what the doctor called it: Graves' disease, yes, but also chemical coercion. I told them abuse can look like a meal cooked for you, like a hand on your waist guiding you to a chair, like a smile that catalogs every bite. I told them a lock is not love, a dose is not devotion, and if something tastes wrong, it probably is. The comments flooded in anger, solidarity, questions. Someone asked what moment finally made me run. I wrote back that it wasn't the padlock, or the dropper, or the new policy alert. It was the first cold glass of safe water I drank at Mia's, the way it slid down without fear and filled my chest with something like light. I realized then how long I'd been negotiating with thirst. I end this by asking you what I asked myself: if someone tells you their cruelty is care, what would you call it instead? Because the doctor called it a diagnosis. The detectives called it evidence. The court called it a crime. And finally, I call it by my name. My body. My hunger. My life.